The first thing I saw was her suitcase beside my front door. The second thing I saw was my husband's hand on her waist. Everyone knew the mistress was moving in. Everyone knew except the one woman whose name was on the deed. Me.
The first thing I saw was her suitcase beside my front door. Cream leather, gold zipper, a silk scarf tied around the handle like she had arrived at a luxury hotel instead of another woman's home. The second thing I saw was my husband's hand on her waist, not by accident, not lightly. His palm rested there with the confidence of a man who had already made a decision and expected the whole house to obey it. The third thing I saw was my housekeeper lowering her eyes. That was how I knew everyone had been warned before me. The staff knew, the guards knew, his mother knew. The Seo family elders knew. Everyone knew the mistress was moving in. Everyone knew the wife was being replaced. Everyone knew except the one woman whose name was on the deed. Me. My name is Noel Baptiste. For 4 years, the world called me Mrs. Seo, wife of Seo Min-jun, Korean Mafia boss, shipping heir, and the kind of man whose silence could make powerful men sit straighter. People thought I lived in his mansion. They were wrong. He lived in mine. And on the afternoon, he brought Vivian Park into my foyer with 2 suitcases, a diamond necklace, and the confidence of a woman who had been promised my bedroom, my staff, and my place beside him. My husband made one mistake. He forgot to ask who owned the house. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not beg him to explain. I simply looked at the suitcase, looked at his hand on her waist, and said, "Bring me the deed." That was the moment Seo Min-jun's face changed. Because the Korean Mafia husband who thought he had moved his mistress into my house was about to learn that every gate, every marble step, every security code, every chandelier, every room, and every key answered to the black woman he had spent 4 years underestimating. And by sunset, the only person leaving that mansion with a suitcase would not be me. Before I became Mrs. Seo, I was Noel Baptiste from a neighborhood where people measured wealth by how long the lights stayed on after the bill arrived. My mother worked in school administration for 32 years. My father restored old houses until his hands became too stiff to hold a brush. We were not rich, but my parents gave me something better than comfort. They gave me discipline. My father used to say, "A house remembers who cared for it." My mother used to say, "Never sign anything you have not read." Both lessons saved my life. By 29, I worked in private property acquisition. My job was simple. Read the documents rich men were too arrogant to read, find the hidden risks, and protect clients from expensive mistakes. I had built a career around one truth. Powerful people are not always careful people. They assume money means control. They assume silence means weakness. They assume a woman standing quietly in the corner has no idea what is being said about her. That mistake became my advantage. I met Seo Min-jun in a courthouse hallway. He was standing near the elevator in a black coat with 3 men behind him. He did not need to announce himself. The hallway shifted around him like his presence had weight. Men lowered their voices. Lawyers straightened their jackets. Security guards pretended not to stare. He watched me calmly while I corrected a billionaire's legal team over a property transfer they had rushed without checking the ownership history. The billionaire called me difficult. I called him unprepared. Min-jun smiled once. Later, as I walked toward the parking lot, he appeared beside me. "You do not fear powerful men," he said. I looked at him. "I fear badly written contracts." That was the first time he laughed. Not loudly. Just enough for me to know I had surprised him. For 3 months, he contacted me only through my office. No flirting, no gifts, no late-night messages, just property questions, estate concerns, quiet acquisitions, complicated holdings, and private family assets wrapped in too many layers for ordinary lawyers to understand. He was not gentle, but he was respectful. Back then, I mistook respect for character. Now I know respect that only survives while a man gets what he wants is not respect. It is strategy. Ashbourne House was never his. That is the part everyone forgot. Before the wedding, before the Seo family elders smiled at me like I was a temporary inconvenience, before his mother called me elegant with the coldness of an insult, before the world called me Mrs. Seo, I bought Ashbourne House through Baptist Holdings. My company. My signature. My money. My name. The mansion sat behind iron gates at the end of a private road, with limestone walls, tall windows, old trees, and a driveway long enough to make visitors feel important before they reached the front door. It had belonged to a retired judge whose children fought over the estate after his death. Beautiful house. Ugly paperwork. Nobody wanted to touch it. I did. Because I understood messy ownership. I understood hidden clauses. I understood how families tried to bury truth beneath emotional noise. I bought the house 18 months before I married Min Jun. The deed was clean. The title was clear. The ownership stayed under Baptiste Holdings. Separate property. Not marital property. Not CO family property. Not Korean Mafia property. Mine. When Min Jun proposed, he knew I owned real estate. He knew I had investments. He knew I was not dependent on him. But he never asked to see the deed. That should have warned me. A man who respects what you own asks how it stands. A man who wants to absorb what you own assumes it was waiting for him. Our wedding was small, elegant, and heavily guarded. His mother, Hyrin Se, wore silver and looked at me the way old money women look at a locked door they believe should have opened for them. "You are very graceful," she said. "Not welcome. Not family. Graceful." That was the word she chose because she could not say useful in front of guests. At the reception, one elder said in Korean, "At least she has dignity for an outsider." I understood him. Min Jun did not know that yet. I had spent 6 months learning enough Korean to follow family conversations because I knew one day they would mistake language for a wall. It was not a wall. It was a window. I smiled. I listened. I remembered. That became my survival method inside the Seo family. Smile. Listen. Remember. The first year, Min Jun loved Ashbourne House because I loved it. He loved the West Garden. He loved the library. He loved the private driveway. He loved the back entrance where cars could arrive without being seen from the road. I loved the sunlight in the breakfast room. He loved the security advantage. That difference mattered more than I realized. Slowly, his world entered my home. First came the guards, then the black cars, then the late-night meetings, then men with heavy rings speaking quietly in my library, then his mother hosting Seo family dinners in my dining room without asking me. Then the elders began calling it the Seo residence. The first time I corrected them, Min Jun smiled and touched my back. "Noel only means the house has its own character," he said. I let him save the room from embarrassment. That was one of my early mistakes. Every time you allow someone to rewrite your boundary as a misunderstanding, they learn to cross it again with more confidence. By the 3rd year of our marriage, I felt like a guest in rooms I owned. His mother changed flower arrangements. His uncle moved meetings into my library. His guards stood at my gate like the iron belonged to them. His cousins parked in my driveway without greeting me. And Min Jun let it happen. Not because he forgot, because it benefited him to forget. Vivian Park entered our lives through the Seo Foundation. 27. Polished. Soft voice. Perfect hair. Perfect posture. Perfect ability to make powerful people feel comfortable. She was the kind of woman Hyrin Seo liked. Not because she was kind, because she knew how to lower her eyes at the right time. I met her at a charity dinner in my ballroom. She stood beneath my chandelier and smiled at me. "This house is beautiful," she said. "Min Jun has such good taste." I looked at her. Does he? Her smile froze for half a second. That was when I knew. Women know. We know in pauses. We know in confidence that arrives too early. We know when another woman says your husband's name like she has practiced making it sound private. I did not accuse him that night. I watched. Underestimated women are dangerous because we watch while everyone assumes we are only enduring. After that dinner, Min Jun changed. Not all at once. That would have been easier. He became busy, then distant, then irritated by questions he used to answer, then protective of a phone that had never needed protecting before, then impatient with my presence in rooms where his family discussed business. One night, after a Seo family dinner, I asked him why Vivian had been seated beside him instead of beside the foundation director. He removed his cufflinks slowly. "She is useful to the family." "So am I said. He looked at me in the mirror. "You are my wife." That was the first time the title felt like a cage. Not partner. Not equal. Wife. In his mouth that night, it meant position, not person. I asked, "Does being your wife mean I stop being useful anywhere else?" He sighed. "Noel, do not start." I stood behind him, looking at both of us in the mirror. I am not starting anything. I am noticing what already started. He said nothing. Silence became his favorite weapon because he knew I had spent years trying to translate it into peace. But silence is not peace. Sometimes silence is just disrespect with better manners. My mother got sick in the 4th year of my marriage. Not dramatically. Quietly. The kind of illness that enters through fatigue, strange test results, careful doctor voices, and the awful sentence, "We just want to run a few more checks." I left Ashbourne House to stay with her. 10 days. Hospital chairs. Medication charts. Insurance calls. Warm soup in paper cups. My mother trying to act stronger than she felt because she did not want me worried. Min Jun visited once. 20 minutes. 2 phone calls outside the room. A kiss on my forehead before he left. My mother watched him walk away and said nothing. That was worse than criticism. On the 9th day, my housekeeper called. Elara Graves never called unless something was wrong. "Mrs. Baptiste," she said. Not Mrs. Seo, Mrs. Baptiste. My spine straightened. What happened? There was a pause. "Mr. Seo has requested the East Suite be prepared." For whom? Another pause. For Miss Vivian Park. The hospital room went quiet around me. My mother slept beside me under a thin blanket. The machines hummed softly. Outside, nurses moved down the hallway like the world had not just tilted. I held the phone tighter. What exactly did he say? He said Miss Park will be staying indefinitely. He said her belongings are arriving tomorrow. He said the household is to treat her with the respect due to someone under his protection. Under his protection. In my house. In my East Suite. While I sat beside my sick mother, I closed my eyes. Not because I was weak, because rage must be handled carefully when it arrives with evidence. "Elara," I said calmly, "do not argue with him." "Yes, ma'am. Do not warn him." "No, ma'am. Prepare the room exactly as instructed." A silence. Then Elara said softly, "Will you be coming home?" I looked at my mother. The woman who taught me never to sign anything I had not read. "Yes," I said, "tomorrow." But I did not go home first. I went to my lawyer. Nadine Cross had been my lawyer for 8 years. She wore charcoal suits, spoke softly, and destroyed arrogant men with documents they forgot existed. When I entered her office, she already had the Ashbourne House file open. She had the deed, the prenuptial schedule, the ownership chain, the estate management contracts, the household payroll records, the security agreement. Everything. I told her Vivian was moving in. Nadine removed her glasses. "Without your consent?" "Yes." "Then she is not moving in." I almost smiled. There are times when a legal sentence feels like medicine. Then Nadine's assistant knocked and entered with another folder. Nadine opened it. Her expression changed. Not dramatically, but enough. "What is it?" I asked. She turned the document toward me. A draft transfer request. Not filed. Not valid. But prepared. Seo Family Council had drafted documents attempting to list Ashbourne House as a recognised Seo family residence under a private family trust. My name appeared on a signature line. A blank signature line. Waiting. Nadine's voice became colder. "They were preparing to pressure you into signing this." I stared at the page. There it was. The betrayal beneath the betrayal. Vivian was not just moving into my house. The Seo family was preparing to absorb it. They were going to make my home look like family property, then use marriage, pressure, reputation, and silence to make me surrender what was mine. My husband had not only disrespected me, he had underestimated my paperwork. I looked at the blank line where they expected my signature. Then I laughed, quietly. Nadine watched me. "Do you want to confront them privately?" "No." "Do you want me present?" "Yes." "Do you want security prepared?" "Yes." She closed the folder. "Then we make sure the room learns the truth at the same time." That was the moment I stopped being hurt and became precise. I drove home at 4:30 in the afternoon. The sun hit the mansion gates like fire on bronze. 2 black cars sat in the circular driveway. One belonged to Min Jun. The other did not. The front door stood open. That angered me more than the suitcase. The open door. As if my home had already been changed into a place where people came and went according to his permission. Daniel Cho, my head of estate security, stood near the gatehouse. Former military. Korean. Quiet as snowfall. loyal to contracts before emotion. He stepped toward my car. Mrs. Baptiste. Who authorized the second vehicle? Mr. Seo gave the instruction. Did I? No, ma'am. Then from this moment, no vehicle enters or exits without my approval. His eyes shifted once toward the mansion, then back to me. Yes, ma'am. That was the first crack in Minjun's illusion. I parked in front of the house I owned. Vivian's suitcase stood beside the door. She stood beside it in a pale green dress, holding a designer handbag and the nervous confidence of a woman who had been promised victory but not given proof. Minjun stood beside her in a black shirt, sleeves rolled, tattoos visible along his wrist. His hand was on her waist. Deliberate. Public. A message. Noel is being replaced. I walked toward them slowly. Power does not rush toward disrespect. Vivian spoke first. Noel, I know this is uncomfortable. I looked at her until she stopped talking. Then I looked at my husband. He did not blink. Vivian will stay in the East Suite, he said. This arrangement has already been made. Made. As if saying a thing calmly made it lawful. I removed my gloves. By whom? His jaw tightened. Do not make this ugly. Minjun, I said, you moved your mistress into my house while I was caring for my sick mother. Ugly has already entered. I am only asking who opened the door. Behind him, one of his guards shifted. Small movement, but enough. Even his own men knew he had crossed a line. Vivian's hand tightened around her bag. Minjun lowered his voice. You are my wife. Yes, I said. Not your tenant. His eyes hardened. You live under my protection. I looked up at Ashbourne House. The windows, the balcony, the garden, the stone path my father would have loved, the door Vivian thought she was about to walk through. Then I looked back at him. No, I said. You live under my roof. The silence landed like glass breaking. Hyrin Seo arrived 10 minutes later. Of course she did. Minjun's mother had a gift for appearing whenever a woman needed to be reminded that the family was watching. She stepped out of a black sedan wearing pearls and a white coat, looking less like a mother and more like a verdict. Behind her came Chairman Seo Deho, Minjun's uncle, and Mr. Han, the family lawyer who smiled like discomfort was billable. Hyrin looked at Vivian first, then at me. Noel, she said gently, let us handle this with dignity. I almost laughed. Dignity. They loved that word when asking women to swallow disrespect politely. Whose dignity? I asked. Her eyes narrowed. Minjun stepped forward. Mother, I can handle my wife. That was his second mistake. My housekeeper heard it. My estate manager heard it. Daniel heard it through his earpiece. Every staff member in the foyer heard the man who did not own the house speak as if the woman who did was an object to be managed. I turned to Elara. Bring me the black folder from my office safe. The air changed. Not emotionally. Legally. Minjun's expression shifted. Noel. I did not look at him. The deed file, I said. Elara nodded. Yes, Mrs. Baptiste. Hyrin's mouth tightened at the name. Baptiste. Not Seo. The name on the company. The name on the deed. The name they assumed marriage had swallowed. Vivian looked at Minjun. You said he silenced her with a glance. That glance told me everything. He had told her the house was his. He had promised her a life inside a story he did not own. Elara returned with the black folder. And behind her, Nadine Cross entered the foyer in a charcoal suit carrying the second folder. The transfer folder. Mr. Han recognized her. His smile faded. Good. I opened the folder and turned the certified copy outward. Ashbourne House, I said. Purchased by Baptiste Holdings 18 months before my marriage to Seo Minjun. Separate property. Full ownership retained by Noel Baptiste. No transfer of title. No marital conversion. No Seo family claim. Chairman Deho reached for the document. I did not hand it to him. Nadine did. Lawyers are useful when powerful men need to remember not to snatch. He read the first page. Then the second. Then his eyes moved to Minjun. That was the first real reversal. Not when I spoke. When another man verified that I was right. Some rooms are still broken that way. But I knew how to use broken rooms. Mr. Han cleared his throat. The deed appears valid. Nadine looked at him. It is valid, he swallowed. Yes, the property is legally hers. Vivian stepped back. Her suitcase knocked softly against the doorframe. A woman who arrived ready to move in had just discovered she was standing at the edge of trespass. Minjun's voice dropped. "You did this behind my back." I looked at him. "I bought this house before I wore your ring. You let me live here." "Yes," I said, "because I loved you." The words were not soft. They were historical. "I let your family dine here. I let your guards stand at my gate. I let your mother host meetings in my garden. I let your elders call it the Seo residence because I believed marriage meant building a life, not staging a takeover." I looked at Vivian's suitcase. But love is not a deed transfer. Marriage is not a title search. And betrayal does not become ownership because you brought luggage. Nobody moved. Then Nadine opened the second folder. "And since we are discussing ownership," she said, "we should also address this." Mr. Hahn's face went pale. Minjun looked at him. "What is that?" Nadine placed the draft transfer document on the foyer table. "A prepared document attempting to classify Ashbourne House as an official Seo family residence under a private trust. It includes a blank signature line for Mrs. Baptiste." Hiren's face hardened. Chairman Deho looked sharply at Mr. Han. Minjun stared at the page. For 1 second, I saw it. He did not know every detail. But he knew enough. Enough to be guilty. Enough to be quiet. Nadine continued. "No such transfer exists. No authorization was given. Any attempt to represent this property as Seo family estate without Mrs. Baptiste's written consent would be false." The foyer went silent. That was the second reversal. The first was that I owned the house. The second was that they had been caught preparing to take what they had no right to touch. I looked at Minjun. "You did not just bring your mistress into my house. You brought her into the middle of a theft your family had not finished." His jaw tightened. "Noelle, no," I said. "Not today." Minjun turned to Daniel Cho. "Escort Vivian inside." Daniel did not move. It was a small refusal. A silence with a spine. Minjun's face hardened. "I gave you an instruction." Daniel's eyes moved to me, then back to him. "With respect, Mr. Seo, Estate Access Authority belongs to Mrs. Baptiste." That sentence changed the room forever. A guard from Minjun's personal team stepped forward. Thomas Reed, my estate manager, raised one hand. "The house staff and estate security will follow ownership protocol." Ownership protocol. I had never loved 2 words more in my life. Chairman Deho turned to Minjun. "You did not know?" It was not a question. It was an indictment. In the Seo family, a man could survive betrayal. He could survive rumors. He could survive a mistress if the money stayed protected and the hierarchy stayed intact. But failing to know who owned the house where your family held private meetings? That was weakness. That was carelessness. That was public humiliation. And Minjun knew it. Vivian whispered, "Minjun, what is happening?" He did not answer her. That was her answer. I turned to her. "Vivian, you will not be staying in the East Suite." Her eyes flashed. "He said I could. I am sure he did." She looked at the deed. Then at Minjun. "You said this was your house." He said nothing. That silence destroyed more than my anger ever could. I signaled to Alara. "Please return Miss Park's luggage to her vehicle." Vivian's face flushed. "You cannot just throw me out." "No," I said calmly. "I can deny you entry." "There is a difference," Nadine added, "a very important one." Hiren stepped forward. "Vivian is under family protection. Then the family may protect her somewhere the family owns," I said. That one landed hard. Even the staff felt it. Minjun stepped toward me, not violently, but with the old expectation that his presence alone would make people move. It used to work. Not today. Daniel stepped forward. So did 2 estate guards. Mine, not his. For the first time in our marriage, my husband looked around my house and realized he did not command the room. He only occupied it. Comment the deed was mine. If this is the exact moment you knew Noelle had taken back her house. For 4 years, they had introduced me as Mrs. Seo, not Noelle Baptiste, not the woman who read contracts faster than their lawyers, not the black woman who owned the estate beneath their polished shoes, not the underestimated wife who understood every insult spoken in Korean, Mrs. Seo, a title they used to make my identity sound borrowed. But when the deed came out, everything returned to its rightful name. Noelle Baptiste, owner of Ashbourne House, principal of Baptiste Holdings. The woman they mistook for decoration inside a mansion she controlled. I looked at Hiren. "Do you remember the first dinner you hosted here?" Her expression cooled. "This is not the time." "It is exactly the time." Min-jun said my name like a warning. I ignored him. "You stood in my dining room and told your cousin this house finally gave the Seo family the image it deserved." Her face went pale. "You understood?" I understood every word. Chairman Daeho looked at her. "Good! Let the rot face witnesses." I continued. "You said I had good manners for a woman with no bloodline. You said I should be grateful Min-jun chose me. You said a wife who knows her place can be useful." Vivian stared at the floor. Min-jun looked away. I smiled. Not warmly. Honestly. I knew my place. That was the problem for you. My place was not beneath this family. My place was on the deed. Silence. Deep. Expensive. The kind of silence that falls when people realize the woman they dismissed kept receipts in more than one language. Hai-rin recovered first. "If you think this makes you powerful, no," I said. "Power is not needing this moment to prove what was already true." I closed the folder. "This house was mine before you respected me. It remains mine after you failed to. That is why it is power." Min-jun's voice softened. "Noel. We can discuss this privately." That almost broke something in me. Not because I wanted him back, because there it was again. The private voice. The voice he used when he needed me to protect him from the consequences of his public choices. I shook my head. "You made the humiliation public. The correction can stand where the injury happened." Vivian's suitcase was returned to the car. Nobody touched her. Nobody shouted. Nobody needed to. There are moments when consequence is stronger because it arrives quietly. Vivian stood beside the car, eyes glossy, anger and embarrassment fighting across her face. "You let me walk into this," she said to Min-jun. He said her name. She laughed once. Not because anything was funny, because humiliation often sounds like laughter right before it becomes regret. "You told me she was living in your house." I looked away, not to protect him, because I did not need to witness every consequence to know it had begun. Hai-rin tried one final time. "Noel, this will create unnecessary talk. Your son created the talk when he gave his mistress my address." Chairman Daeho muttered in Korean, "He has become careless." Min-jun heard it. That wounded him more than anything I had said, because it came from power he still cared about. That realization did not hurt as much as I expected. Some truths are knives only before they fully enter. After that, they become knowledge. Vivian got into the car. The suitcase left with her. The front door looked clean again. Then I handed Nadine the folder. "Prepare the notice." Min-jun's eyes sharpened. "What notice?" "Revocation of guest privileges for anyone not authorized by ownership. Effective immediately." He stared. "And me?" I looked at him for a long moment. This was the man who once admired that I was not afraid. The man who kissed my shoulder in the West Garden. The man who learned my tea order. The man who later filled my library with whispers, my dining room with elders, my gate with guards, and my foyer with his mistress. Love and disappointment stood side by side in my chest. Only one still had a job to do. "You may remain tonight," I said, "in the guest wing. Tomorrow, you leave." His face changed. "You are removing me from our home?" "No," I said. "I am removing you from mine." The distinction was everything. After everyone left, Min-jun and I stood alone in the foyer. The sun had dropped low. Gold light spilled across the marble. He looked tired now. Not dangerous. Not powerful. Just tired. Almost like the man I married. Almost. "Noel," he said. I removed my earrings. A small thing. But it reminded me I was done performing. Do not ask me to understand. I was going to say I made a mistake. "No," I said. "A mistake is forgetting an appointment. A mistake is signing the wrong page. You moved another woman into my home while I was caring for my mother." He swallowed. I thought, "Yes," I said. "You thought." That stopped him. Because that was the whole story. He thought I would accept it. He thought I had nowhere to go. He thought being Mrs. Seo mattered more to me than being Noel Baptiste. He thought his family name could expand until it covered everything I owned. He thought love had made me careless. He thought wrong. "I was under pressure," he said. "The family expected certain arrangements. You are a Korean mafia boss, Min-jun. Men twice your age lower their voices when you enter a room. Do not stand in my foyer and tell me your mother made you move your mistress into my house. His jaw worked. No answer. Good. Some lies die when spoken near a deed. He sat on the bottom stair. The same stair where, 2 years earlier, he had kissed my hand and told me Ashbourne House felt peaceful because I was in it. Memory is cruel in houses. It hides in corners and waits until you are trying to be strong. I did love you, he said. I believed him. That was the hardest part. I know, I said. His eyes lifted. But you loved me the way powerful men sometimes love strong women. You admired my independence until it protected me from you. You respected my mind until it contradicted your family. You wanted me beside you, but not beyond your control. That is not fair. No, I said. What you did was not fair. What I said was accurate. He looked down. What do you want? There it was. The question men ask after taking too much and discovering something remains that they cannot command. I want peace, I said. And I have learned peace cannot live where disrespect has a key. His eyes closed. You are ending our marriage? You ended it when you opened my door for her. The next morning, the CO family did what powerful families always do when truth embarrasses them. They tried to rename it. By 9, Hiren called it a misunderstanding. By 10, Mr. Hahn called it a domestic dispute. By noon, Chairman Deho suggested property conversations were too sensitive to involve staff, as if my staff had not been ordered to prepare a room for my replacement. By 1, Minjun sent flowers. White orchids. Wedding flowers. I had Elara place them in the East Suite, then lock the door. Nadine filed the separation notice that afternoon. Not divorce yet. Separation. There is dignity in not rushing the legal end of something your heart has already understood. Minjun moved to a penthouse downtown under Seo corporate ownership. The family spun it as temporary security restructuring. I did not correct them. Let them have language. I had the house. 2 days later, Hiren arrived without an appointment. Daniel stopped her at the gate. That was the first time she had ever been denied entry to Ashbourne House. She called me personally. Noelle, she said, voice colder than glass. Your guard is confused. No, I said. He is employed. You are being vindictive. I am being accurate. This house has hosted Seo family matters for years, and now it will not. A pause. You would cut yourself off from us? I looked out the window at the west garden. No, Hiren. I am closing a gate you mistook for an open mouth. Then I ended the call. That moment was quieter than the foyer confrontation. But it mattered more. Because the first time you say no publicly, everyone sees your strength. The first time you say no privately and do not shake afterward, you feel it. Minjun came back 1 week later. Not in a convoy. Not with guards. Not with his mother. He walked from the gatehouse after Daniel called me for permission. He is alone, Daniel said. Let him in. I met Minjun in the garden, not inside. That was intentional. The house no longer owed him shelter. He stopped near the stone bench beneath the magnolia tree. You changed the gate code, he said. Yes. I planted those trees. You chose the vendor, I said. I paid the invoice. He almost smiled. Almost. Then he looked at me with regret that had arrived too late to be useful. I should have asked. For what? About the house? About the deed? About what mattered to you? You should have asked before you assumed. He nodded. I was arrogant. Yes. And cruel. Yes. His eyes dropped. I thought if I kept everyone calm, it would settle. You thought if I stayed quiet long enough, your betrayal would become a household arrangement. He flinched. Good. Some truths should leave marks. I never meant to shame you. Minjun, you did not hide Vivian somewhere private. You brought her to my door. You stood her under my chandelier. You asked my staff to prepare my East Suite. That was not carelessness. That was a coronation. He looked away. And you expected me to attend it quietly. For a long time, he said nothing. Wind moved through the trees. The house stood behind me, silent and steady. Finally, he asked, is there any way back? A year earlier, that question would have destroyed me. Now it simply passed through me and found no place to stay. No. His eyes closed. I can remove Vivian from everything. You should do whatever is honorable for the life you created outside our marriage. But do not confuse cleaning up your scandal with repairing my trust. He nodded slowly. Then he bowed his head. Not deeply, not theatrically, but enough. I am sorry, Noel. The apology was late. Insufficient, but real. Thank you, I said. He looked up with hope. I did not give him more. Your remaining belongings will be packed by Friday. Daniel will coordinate delivery. The hope left his face. But he did not argue. That was the final gift he gave me, leaving without forcing me to become louder than my peace. The divorce took 7 months, not because there was confusion, because pride delays what paperwork already knows. The Seo family did not get Ashbourne House. They did not get Baptiste Holdings. They did not get the West Garden. They did not get the library. They did not get the East Suite. They did not get the staff contracts. They did not get the gate codes. They did not get the right to call my home the Seo residence ever again. Minjun tried once to claim improvements made during the marriage. Nadine handled that with 14 pages of receipts, transfers, invoices, and proof that every major renovation had been paid through my company. Mr. Hahn stopped raising that argument after the second meeting. Good lawyers know when a lie has no chair to sit on. Vivian disappeared from public view for a while. I heard later she left the foundation, then left the city. I do not know what became of her and Minjun. I no longer needed to know. That is one sign healing has begun. Curiosity loses its teeth. Hyrin sent one message after the divorce finalized. Not an apology. Of course not. Just one sentence. You were more prepared than we realized. I read it once and laughed. Even then, she could not say the truth. I was not more prepared than they realized. I was more prepared than they respected. There is a difference. 6 months after the divorce, I hosted my first event at Ashbourne House under my own name. Not a family council. Not a mafia meeting. Not a dinner where powerful men whispered over food prepared by people they never thanked. A fundraiser for women rebuilding after financial betrayal. The ballroom was full of lawyers, social workers, business owners, survivors, and quiet women who understood that sometimes freedom begins with learning where your name appears on paper. I stood at the front of the room in a deep blue gown and looked at women who had been told they owned nothing, controlled nothing, deserved nothing, could leave with nothing. And I told them the truth. Read everything. Keep copies. Know what belongs to you. Love is beautiful, but documentation is protection. They applauded. Not loudly at first, then louder. And for the first time in years, applause inside Ashbourne House did not sound like performance. It sounded like restoration. If there is one thing I want you to carry from this story, let it be this. Do not let anyone convince you that being loved means becoming careless with yourself. Love can be generous. Love can be soft. Love can forgive. But love should never require you to forget your name, your work, your boundaries, your documents, your peace, or the doors you opened before anyone else arrived to enjoy the room. My Korean Mafia husband moved his mistress into my house because he believed marriage had made me smaller. He believed his name had swallowed mine. He believed the staff answered to fear. He believed the guards answered to power. He believed the house answered to him. But the deed knew the truth before anyone else did. The deed knew my name. The gate knew my name. The payroll knew my name. The walls knew my name. And eventually, the whole room learned it too. Some people will call you difficult because you remember what belongs to you. Let them. Some people will call you cold because you stop giving warm access to people who bring disrespect to your door. Let them. Some people will call you proud because you refuse to be quietly replaced in a life you helped build. Let them. Peace is not always gentle in the beginning. Sometimes peace starts with a locked gate, a signed document, a suitcase returned to the car, and a woman finally saying, "No, not in my house. I do not hate Minjun." Hatred would keep him living somewhere inside me, and he had already occupied enough rooms he did not own. I released him. I released his mother. I released the Seo name. I kept my house. I kept my peace. I kept myself. And every morning now, when I walk down the stairs of Ashbourne House and see sunlight touch the marble floor, I remember the day Vivian's suitcase sat beside my front door. I remember the silence, the deed, the bodyguards, the locked gate. The moment everyone realized the wife they tried to replace was the only reason the doors had opened in the first place. Then I make tea. I sit in the West Garden. And I thank God my mother taught me never to sign what I had not read. Because the signature that saved me was not on my marriage certificate. It was on the deed. If this story pulled you in, tell me in the comments which moment hit hardest. The suitcase at the door, The deed reveal, the bodyguards choosing Noelle, or the locked gate. And if you are new here, subscribe to Mafia Heartbeat for more Korean mafia romance stories where underestimated women, hidden power, betrayal, emotional justice, dignity, loyalty, and status reversal collide. Because sometimes the woman they tried to remove from the house is the only one who ever truly owned it.